Some tears have called to me, so here comes my sweet remedy. I know what every princess needs.
The Fairy Godmother from Shrek 2.
To live life happily.
The Fairy Godmother is the highest ranked of the traditional non-Disney animated villains on this list. Sorry fellas, I'm just not a fan of most non-Disney Western animated movies. But boy is the Fairy Godmother a lot of fun. Imagine if one gave Barbara Streisand magical powers and a psychotic streak. The result is one of the most hilarious villains ever. I have to hand it to the Fairy Godmother. She's the first Shrek villain to be a true extension of the fairy tale parody. Sure, Lord Farquaad was a good villain, but what was his analog supposed to be? The historically incorrect perception of Napoleon? And though he was a threatening opponent for Shrek and Fiona, he was just a butthurt man-child at heart. The Fairy Godmother has no issues with her identity. She's a diva, she's a comedian, she's the most powerful magical force in her universe, so sit down and shut up. She's even a bit of a Machiavellian schemer, willing to manipulate anyone to get her way.
You were supposed to give her the potion!
Well, I guess I gave her the wrong tea. Mummy!
Mummy?
I told you, ogres don't live happily ever after!
The Fairy Godmother is the perfect inversion of the fairy tale character. Most incarnations of the Fairy Godmother have her as nothing but a goody two-shoes who has no purpose other than making our heroes' dreams come true. This Fairy Godmother is selfish. She's a schemer. Even as a character, she's more fleshed out. Did you know that the Fairy Godmother has weight problems?
Just get this place cleaned up!
Yes, Godmother.
And somebody bring me something deep-fried and smothered in chocolate.
I considered sharing this spot between the Fairy Godmother and Prince Charming, a funny villain in his own right. But then Shrek the Third happened.
Ah, Mabel. Why they call you an ugly stepsister, I'll never know.
I'm not gonna lie, Shrek the Third is really, really awful. But the Fairy Godmother remains a blast. She's nearly always funny, she's a great threat to our heroes, and she's one hell of a performer.
I thought the law says that only a prince can marry a princess. I'm quite sure
Desperate times call for desperate measures, my lord.
Desperate measures.
You will order the princess to marry me.
Jafar from Aladdin.
The princess.
Jafar is one of those Disney villains whom all the fans adore. He's slimy, dastardly, cunning, all those diabolical Disney villain traits we know and love. Jafar's also got the power to back up all his evil, being both a master manipulator and a brutal sorcerer. He's wonderfully slick with his villainy, adding a little sense of grace even when he's fighting the down and dirty.
Whoever has the gold makes the rules.
And one's gotta hand it to Jonathan Freeman. The oily texture of his voice works wonders on Jafar.
Now, Pussycat, tell me more about myself.
This is one of those roles in which the voice and the design go really well together. He's also got a great laugh. Of all the Disney villains on this list, Jafar is the villain most integral to his movie. I mean this in that Jafar shares screen time with pretty much every other character in the film. Sure, there's scenes between him and Aladdin, but we see Jafar and the Sultan, Jafar and Jasmine, Jafar and the Genie. Hell, Jafar even gets a scene with Razul. He's a key part of his movie's universe. Also, Jafar is the epitome of Disney villain sadism. Sure, Maleficent curses a baby to die on her 16th birthday. Jafar reverses a tiger's growth, turns a monkey into a toy, curses Jasmine to slowly drown in sand, unravels a magic carpet strand by strand, stuffs crackers down the Sultan's mouth, and even leads Jasmine to do this.
I never realized how incredibly handsome you are.
He's also the one who actually uses his power to its fullest. He's a master of disguise, a remarkably good transfigurist, and did I mention his evil laugh? That being said, Jafar has a lot of problems too. Of all the Disney villains, he's easily the most idiotic. Never have I seen a Disney villain pass up more opportunities to kill off the main character. Look, Jafar could have killed Aladdin here, Jasmine here, Aladdin here, here, here. You get the picture. Just cast Avada Kedavra already! You're not a genie, so your magic can be used to kill people. And why does Jafar not kill his foes? So he can make lame-ass puns!
I'm just getting warmed up! Don't toy with me! Things are unraveling fast now.
Oh, and there's that little bit of stupidity when he doesn't realize what being a genie actually means. Furthermore, I wouldn't be lying if I said Jafar's design wasn't a little bit offensive. The only Arabic-looking character in the entire movie is a villain.
Come on, Aladdin! I'll take that as a yes.
Jafar might not be deep or interesting, but he is fun. For a movie with as weak a moral center as Aladdin, that's the kind of villain we are looking for. At the end of the day, Jafar is an over-the-top Disney villain with a lot of power and a lot of pent-up evil. And to seal the deal, why not give him the greatest evil laugh in movie history?
There will be a substantial reward for the one who finds the Millennium Falcon. You are free to use any methods necessary.
Boba Fett from the Star Wars franchise.
No disintegrations.
As you wish.
Boba Fett doesn't so much earn this spot based on what he does in the Star Wars movies, but he makes the list due to what he represents to sci-fi fans everywhere. Boba Fett illustrates how presence and design can lead to the creation of one of the most badass bounty hunters of all time, perhaps the most badass bounty hunter in all of sci-fi. And make him the second most badass bounty hunter in all of sci-fi. He's a character so cool the fans actually petitioned to bring him back from the dead, and the creators listened. Yeah, that humiliating death scene from the Return of the Jedi has been retconned. It turns out a jetpack can survive a blow from a vibro axe. Boba Fett carries his presence in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi purely on his cool factor. Of all the bounty hunters we see in The Empire Strikes Back, he's the only one to provide an aura of true professionalism. It seems clear that he's capable of capturing just about anyone. Indeed, one of my only disappointments with The Empire Strikes Back is the fact Boba Fett isn't able to capture Han Solo and co. on his own. He's certainly capable of doing just that. He's the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy for a reason. Several other Star Wars villains have followed in Boba Fett's dark and silent footsteps. Darth Maul is the clear analog, what with him saying only 2 lines in The Phantom Menace. But while Darth Maul just looks menacing, Boba Fett feels menacing. There's a sense of absolute unpredictability in what he's going to do. All one knows is that behind the visor is a killer through and through. I know Boba Fett has almost been rewritten into heroic status with the rise of Darth Caedus in the Star Wars Extended Universe, and while I respect the interpretation, I've always found it a little far-fetched that Boba Fett would turn from a lethal bounty hunter to a Mandalorian war hero. Hey, but that's the power of creativity for ya. That to me is the most impressive element of Boba Fett's character. He was created as a clean slate upon which fans, professional authors, and even budding directors have written upon. He's the power of creativity encapsulated within one imposing figure.
Number 92.
Where do you think you're going? Get a whiskey? All right. All right.
Jack Wilson from Shane. Jack Wilson is the standard by which I judge all Western villains. If the villain is better than Jack, as a few villains on this list are, then one has a real treat. Less than Jack, and one's just got a stereotypical rustler who has no character at all. Nonetheless, Jack is the bar to which all other Western villains must be held, for Jack Wilson is pure evil. There's no half-stepping on this one. Wilson is evil in pretty much every sense of the word. Sadistic, resistant to authority, disrespectful of any mentality other than his own, he is 100% unadulterated malice. We're not talking about a guy who is in it for money, for revenge, or for ideas. We're talking about a guy who will shoot you for looking at him funny. Much like Boba Fett, Wilson is a villain who acts more on his presence than on his actual villainy. He's not particularly smart, diabolical, conniving, or even that fun to watch, but when he enters a room... damn. It's as if the entire environment is cast in shadow. There's no mistaking it. Jack Wilson's presence is his best attribute. Nonetheless, there are some other things to admire about Jack Wilson as a character. Oddly enough, Wilson is a Northerner, characteristically cast as the anti-slavery, anti-Jim Crow good guy. But in this movie, he doesn't focus on those issues at all. He just calls out Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee for being trash as opposed to making very wrong decisions.
I'm saying that Stonewall Jackson was trash himself. Him, Lee, and all the rest of them rebs.
He has no higher standard for life. He's just as much a bigot as any slave owner or slavery defender. He just happened to pick the right side. As a result, he's the lowest of the low in his movie's universe.
I've heard that you're a low-down Yankee liar.
Shane is a movie about manhood, or to avoid the sexist implication that a woman can't fulfill the same role, true maturity. Shane, one of my favorite heroes ever, is a man who will not resort to his guns unless he absolutely has to. He's a peacemaker, a friend, someone who lets his love for people and life guide his actions. Compare that to Wilson, a killer who acts on impulse and malice. He's an immature child who has learned how to use his family's guns and has gone on a killing spree. Jack Wilson. He might have been on the right side of history, but he's on the wrong side of the silver screen.
You're a low-down lying Yankee. Prove it.
Welcome to the mysterious stranger.
Hello.
Who are you?
An angel.
What's your name?
Satan.
From the mysterious stranger.
Please, come in.
Well, that about sums it up. Seriously, if Satan from Mark Twain's novella The Mysterious Stranger doesn't scare you, then some central neurons must be missing from your cerebral cortex. This Satan is one of the best in all of literature, and is perhaps my favorite ever to be put to film. Many others point to Chernabog from Fantasia or Darkness from Legend, but this Satan manages to be much more terrifying and interesting than both of them put together.
What kind of fruit do you like the most?
In the original novella, Satan seems to be presented as an almost morally ambivalent character. After all, human morality has no value to him. He's so much more powerful than humans that he treats them just like humans treat ants, insignificant pests whose deaths have no effect on the broader universe. He claims to make lives better, considering their lives within a network of infinite causes, putting people on that path that minimizes suffering. Yet each time said action ends up with people dying prematurely, as that would allegedly lessen the suffering a longer life would promote. In this regard, Satan manages to turn the world of utilitarianism on its head, seeing what happens if you drag out any particular moral theory to its most absurd extreme.
There, here's a buddy.
Now we'll give them life.
Now some might say that Mark Twain presented his Satan to be a hero, to be the embodiment of his own life philosophy. Well, I have my doubts. The mysterious stranger is told through a narrator whom we can't wholly believe. After all, he's a guy enamored with someone named Satan. But what's most terrifying about Satan is his solipsism, the belief that only he exists and that all else is but a projection of his desires and subconscious. As a result of this ideology, Satan becomes even more cruel. Since he treats all authority and morality as inhibitors that he's designed himself, he grants himself the license to do whatever he wants regardless of others. I mean, why not? He doesn't think that others exist at all.
What fascinations there are on this planet. Strange mortals with curious customs.
This claymation sequence from The Adventures of Mark Twain has become infamous for its depiction of Satan. The animation takes the complex moral ideas of the book and turns them into a nightmare. It's phenomenally frightening, especially when Satan unleashes his full potential. Satan from the mysterious stranger. Let's all hope we're not projections of his subconscious.
Never mind them. People are of no value. We could make more sometime, if we need them. Life itself is only a vision, a dream. Nothing exists save empty space, and you are but a